law of the
You
land.
tell me why.
You don't know anything about my
Gays are
religion.
killed.
You were talking about stuff you don't know anything about. Like, what, do you
equal
know what it
rights?
is? Me praying five
Sharia law.
Of course, me praying 5 times a day is Sharia.
This debate got intense fast, but what most people missed wasn't the shouting. It was something underneath it. Because this wasn't just a disagreement. It was 2 different ways of arguing. And one of them wasn't going to win. If you enjoy breakdowns that go deeper than surface level arguments, subscribe and smash the notification bell so that you don't miss what is coming next. To understand what you watched at the beginning of this video, I need to provide you the context. This was an exchange between a Somali-Australian activist and an Australian senator, which quickly turned into a clash over Islam, Sharia law, and national identity. But here is the part that most people overlooked. This debate was never about Sharia law at all. It only looked like it was. And once you see what it was actually about, the entire exchange starts to make sense. This debate was set in motion by a senior citizen in the audience who asked a question about immigration and how to handle it.
There has been a mass migration of people between continents. People bring with them different cultures, experience, expectations. This mixture of people, some of them oppressed for a long time, has put the meaning of democracy in question. Question about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, women's liberation, equality of all genders, which are separate from religion, are misunderstood. Is it not the time for democratic leaders of the world to identify and define the rules so that migration doesn't disturb the peace and harmony of the community?
And the response was swift.
Okay, I'm going to start with Jackie Lambie because she has suggested new rules around migration.
Well, I have, and I'm happy to talk about the full face covering that we've done.
We'll come to that.
Right.
But, I mean, let's stick with migration first. That's a question about migration. And
Okay.
I mean, earlier this month or last month, you reportedly said Australia should follow Donald Trump's path.
Well, I've actually said it in the past, and what I've said is I would rather look after our own backyard first, which we're not. We're actually taking from the poor. So that's, you know, somehow when we've got 1/3 of our pensioners, our wage pensioners living on or below the poverty line, something needs to be done. And if that means we need to put a hold or a ban on that for 2 years to fill in that gap to make sure that those people in our own backyard get what is needed, so be it. I've got isatics out there everywhere. I've got kids at 11 and 12. I can't get them into rehab centres because the government doesn't want to spend the money.
The activist begins by defending Islam, framing it as peaceful and empowering, even describing it as the most feminist religion. She leans heavily on identity and personal experience and the emotional impact of political rhetoric.
Did you say to the advocate in Tasmania that we should follow Donald Trump's example by deporting all Muslims who support Sharia law?
Yep, that's correct. Anybody that supports Sharia law in this country should be deported.
So do you know what Sharia law is?
Yes, but it does not have
Do you
equal
know what it
rights.
is?
Are
Me
you
praying
five Sharia law?
Of course, me
Do you?
praying 5 times a day is Sharia.
Okay.
Right? Like basic.
What about the
do you-
equal rights
do you
for
know
women? What about
That is completely separate from
Oh,
Islam.
so now you can be a Sharia law supporter and be half pregnant at the same time.
What
Come
are you talking
on.
about? You were talking about
try and
stuff
have
you
one
don't
person.
know anything about. Like, okay, I'm not going to attack you personally.
What
but
law?
my frustration is that people talk about Islam without knowing anything about it. And they're willing to completely negate any of my rights as a human being, as a woman, as a person with agency, simply because they have an idea about what my faith is about. Excuse me, Islam to me is the most feminist religion. It's well before the Europeans. We don't take our husbands' last names because we ain't their property, right? We were given the right to own land. We the fact is, what is culture is separate from what is faith. And the fact that people go around dissing my faith without knowing anything about it and want to chuck me out of a country.
And there's a limitation to that approach, but it is not obvious yet. This matters because the argument isn't really legal or political, it's experiential. She's arguing from impact, from how things feel. And that works, but only in a certain kind of debate. And this is where quietly things begin to go wrong. The senator takes a completely different approach. She shifts away from identity and moves into law, governance, and structure. Her core idea is simple. A country can only operate under one legal system. And right there, you can already see the collision coming.
We have one law in this country, and it is the Australian law. It is not Sharia law.
In Islam,
not in this country.
Do you know what
not in my day.
In Sharia, it says you follow the law of the land on which you are on.
They clash. This is where the debate begins to fracture, but not in a way that most people think, because the problem isn't just disagreement. It's that they are not even arguing about the same thing.
Do you know what it is?
Me praying five Sharia law?
Of course, me praying 5 times a day is Sharia.
Okay.
Right? Like basic.
What about the equal rights for women?
It says in Islam that you follow the law of the land.
You tell me why.
You don't know anything about my
gays
religion.
are killed. You tell me that.
Jackie,
That is not
both of
my
you,
religion.
Can I just say that shouting at each other is not going to help?
That is true.
So please stop.
The activist is talking about Sharia as a personal practice, daily life, faith, identity.
Now, let's just go to Donald Trump was mentioned, and obviously he's redefining the rules around immigration in the United States, at least temporarily at this stage. You got caught up in that. Are you still caught up in it as a dual Sudanese-Australian citizen?
So I was born in Sudan. I moved to Brisbane when I was a year and a half. And apparently because I was born in Sudan, I might be a terrorist. I was caught up in that because of the fact that I was born in Sudan. Despite the fact that I grew up in this country, I know no other real culture than Australian, really, because Australian is who I am. And I think the fact is that Donald Trump is changing a whole bunch of things. And the fact that we're normalising the kind of discussions and the kind of rhetoric that Donald Trump uses frightens me. Right? It deeply makes me scared because, Jackie, you talk about, and I apologise for yelling because that is unbecoming of a lady. You talk about protecting Australians. Well, I am Australian. I have gone around the world talking about how much I love Australia. Just wait, right? And so it hurts me deeply, right, when my elected representatives don't want to have me in this country simply because of my faith or because of where I was born. And I think this kind of rhetoric is what we saw pre-World War II. We saw it in the 30s, the same kind of othering. They are different, they're not like us, they do stuff that we don't accept. I back you 100%. We should look after people that are vulnerable in this country. I will back you to the hilt on that. But that is not mutually exclusive to being generous to those that are coming.
The senator is arguing about Sharia as a legal system, courts, enforcement, governance. You see where the problem is?
That would drive the people out of the Middle East instead of staying there, making sure they've got safe havens.
Let's get Jackie Lambie's perspective on this. You're watching this as an outsider.
Yeah, I am. You know
who represents a middle ground? I mean, you identify yourself as representing the grassroots, I think it's fair to say.
A nationalist, they call me. Very patriotic. Love my country. No doubts about that.
Does that include people like me?
I made it quite clear. It's a Sharia law.
So what looks like a crash is actually a misalignment, and the debate almost never recovers from that, the turning point. This is where everything changes. The debate shifts from ideas to confrontation.
The law of the land.
Tell me why.
You don't know anything about my religion.
Gays are killed.
At this point, the conversation begins to unravel. Interruptions increase, emotions rise, focus disappears. And this is where most viewers think, who is winning? But actually, that is a wrong question, because the outcome is already decided earlier, the verdict. Who made a strong case? The activist raises real concerns: identity, discrimination, misunderstanding. But the argument stays in the emotional frame. The senator keeps returning to a principle: one law governs the nation. And in a policy debate, that difference matters more than most people realize. The real debate isn't who spoke louder or who seemed more passionate. It's this: debates aren't won by intensity. They are won by staying aligned to the actual question. And if you lose that, you can be right and still lose the argument. Kindly do me a favor for making this far. Like, subscribe, and smash the notification bell so that you don't miss the next breakdown. And if you enjoy debates like this, watch another debate where Muslim women were crushed by Christian women. They did not know what had hit them.